explain what we're doing here. I am recreating this Lost City footage because the first time I ran this, there is one frame drop freeze because the internet that I had um, at a part that I really want to be seen when the big view of the second valley in this level appears when you fly out into it from the very first downhill slide. I, for the most part, left those freezes in the footage because I like the aesthetic in a project like this to see the flaws and the imperfections in the experience of crafting. I don't want something engineered down to the detail. The emergence of how the experience looks as a human being interacts with the machines that the human mind has made um, is part of the nonverbal message and nonverbal story that I convey with all of my art, including the music that I write. And so I left those stops and the imperfections and like low resolution type 360p in the majority of what I've made. And this is one of the only cases where I have wanted to remake any part of it other than the times where I was just drafting, just getting an idea of what the content would look like, and I went back and replayed it after I had that full idea. Especially with the flower footage, I have had several takes through flower and through the first part of this first volume. So what I've got to do here is step into this portal, start the level, and play the Zen lecture conclusion, which I separated out for this interlude. That lecture on Zen majorly is presented during the desert level, but the second part of it comes in the chapter 2 segment, describing essentially the legendary mystic, the Bodhisattva, who takes what he knows about essentially the fool's perspective, the Joker's perspective, that everything is games and we're already eternal, but he comes back and plays the game with gusto, not because it's his duty to help people, but that the game is the most fun that way, when you help people, when you try to reveal to them reality, and when you especially don't try to scare the people that are too far out to see it, but just give them your respects. That's the last part of the lecture on Zen, and then it closes with this interlude, which struck me extremely deeply the first times I was hearing Alan Watts, because it's so pictorially narration relevant. It strikes me exactly where Stanley Parable does and exactly where these games do. It was like he could see the future of, just by looking directly into the human mind, as Zen does. Alan Watts essentially established these concepts. It's like he willed all of this into being with his intensely imaginative Taoism and his desire to flow and not be in his own way. It feels like has manifested all of this into reality, and it feels like a true unity. Like I am one with that mind, that human mind that he was conveying to people when he would say, I am not here to preach to you or save you or convert you to anything. I am here because it amuses me to talk about what is, and if I get paid for that, then I make my living. But I do this because it amuses me, because I'm an entertainer, and because philosophy is like music, and it's up to a matter of taste. And the purpose is how the melody sounds. The purpose is the experience of the fun that it is to say it and to listen to it being said. So this is how it is.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I don't want to blurb like this. It makes me feel great. Great.
Yes. Yes.
No way out.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Blurb, 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 blurb,
Yes.
blurb, 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 blurb,
Yes.
blurb, blurb, blurb,
Yes.
blurb, blurb, blurb,
Yes.
blurb.
Yes. 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 Yes.
The whole time and all the way through.
Yes.
The question is, what do you want to do?
Yes.
Do you want to live your life?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Do you want to? Is that?
Yes.
Or come on, let's go.
Yes.
You see, let's
Yes. Yes.
let's swing this thing.
Yes. Yes.
Life is vibrating.
Yes.
It's going blip, blip,
Yes.
blip,
Yes.
blip,
Yes.
blip all the time.
Yes.
The anxious person says,
Yes.
God's sake, don't do that.
Yes.
Because, you know, you might do it too much. I don't want to blurp like this. It makes me feel nervous. Stop it. And so, as he puts his weight on this blip, blip, he goes like this. You see, it gets trembling. So instead of saying, come on, let's blip, see, let's go, and do this thing, thing of death, life reaches a certain point where it has to go blip.
Yes.
And in the moment you go blip,
Yes.
that's the sensation. We're just on the verge of it's going to blip.
Yes.
Strange. I'm alive.
Yes.
I don't remember where I was
Yes.
before.
Yes.
And you grow and grow, and you become more familiar with this and more familiar. When you're completely familiar, it goes blip.
Yes. 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 Yes.
See, quite different.
Yes. 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 Yes.
But we know it's about to go blip.
Yes. 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 Yes.
The only thing is to go with that flip.
Yes. Yes.
See, get ready to go. Are you ready? Blip.
Yes. Yes.
Then you can laugh.
Yes.
Because you know there's no way out.
Yes.
I don't want to blip like this. It makes me feel great. Great.
Yes. Yes.
No way out.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Blip, 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 blip,
Yes.
blip, blip, blip,
Yes.
blip, blip, blip,
Yes.
blip, blip, blip,
Yes.
blip.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Arabesques
Yes.
of
Yes.
inlaid gold
Yes.
on the steel.
Yes.
Why?
Yes. Yes.
Because it's, as
Yes.
they say among the Pennsylvania Dutch,
Yes.
it's for nice.
Yes. Yes.
It's a great thing to have all that jazz. And that's what we go for. What do people do most of the time when what would they like to do, really? What's your idea of heaven? When people are unoccupied, as far as I can make out, they get together and they sing and dance. Or else watch somebody else do it. Nowadays we live in a non-participative culture, and we don't do very much singing and dancing. We're lugubrious. But we watch other people do it on television. What we really are interested in is to be able to spend all the time going, you know, something like this. And that's what our heart's doing, that's what our lungs are doing, it's what our eyeballs are doing, and it's what all these fantastic capillaries of the veins are doing. They're going just doody-boo-doo, hubba-bubba-ba-dee-dee-dee, see? And that's the point. Now, the thing is, ought this to be allowed? You know, dare we admit it? Because we've been brought up, you see, in a cultural context in which the universe is presided over by somebody serious. And it's only very, very occasional obscure references in the Jewish and Christian scriptures to the idea that God dances. Of course, in Hindus, they know Shiva dances, and all the gods dance, and they're represented in the dance. But in our way of looking at things, no. Back, deep down in, there is something that you must respect with a very, very, you mustn't laugh in church. Especially if you got in front of the throne of heaven, everybody would be dead silent. Wow, you see, I mean, that's really serious. Here is the Father Almighty, world without end. And you watch out. Don't you laugh. Why not? Because Father Almighty, world without end is a very insecure fellow. And if anybody laughed, he might feel uneasy, you know, that there was something wrong going on. That someone challenged his power. So he is a funny fellow, you see, as we've mythologized. What you do is you just put your hands on your hips with the wrist upwards. And now, let's all laugh. That nothing around here is particularly sacred. And so the people who want say, no, wait a minute, there must be something special. Must be something sacred. We must set off a certain part of life. Hey, come off it now. We can't make everything common property. See, there must be something special. Yeah, here, see? Specially guarded. You keep out. But what are you doing? Why? Obviously. By saying there's something special, something sacred, you keep out of this, that's your identity. That's your ego. Then there are other people who come along and say, to hell with everything sacred. Oh, you're all just a bunch of crooks. That's another false, that nothing around here is particularly sacred.
Alright, so I've spent weeks and weeks fixated upon this single grounding point of this script. There shouldn't be wind noise, but there might be fucking airport noise. One script converted into three, which is the three symbols I've landed on in the whole fucking thing here. The door, the huge gaze, speech eye, and the Joker card. The fool, Joker, warrior, mystic guy that is me. The love samurai. We got three things: the ground, the platform that's a blank level before you build anything, the scaffolding, everything on the way up, what the blocks are that we're creating, and then the fucking adventure koans, video game koans at the end, what it is when you put the blocks together and tell something that's bigger than the story, mythos, what all the blocks are when all the edges snap together. What is it?
So it's the platform, then make the blocks, so then what do we make with the blocks, okay? So that's what the script has become. I'm literally wandering around trying to find a fucking Denny's. We're in fucking Boise, fleeing the super catastrophe of crazy wind potentiated wildfires in my northwest. I just didn't feel like sitting around get trapped by smoke danger and or fire danger. Smoke danger is the big danger. Fire destroys your house, but the smoke kills you. So I just left. I gathered everything that we might need to reasonably start in another housing. So it's like a move with no destination. We're in a hotel for 3 days, and I'm wandering trying to find the fucking Denny's instead of looking at a map. I think I see the building that it is, though. But this is technically airport hotels and shit. Alright, so I've been making this script along this whole time. Cool, there's the Denny's sign. The script became 3. The whole picture became completely clear in terms of what is a creative arrival point. So all I'm doing right now is further clarifying how is these 3 episodes going to be. And they correspond roughly to the 3 symbols, but everything's interchangeable. All the pieces snap together in any which way that I want. They all talk to each other at every single vertex point, and this is the nature of the whole Zen paradox, the thing at the top. It unties every problem. It relates everything back into everything else. Gigi Muge, blip, 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 blip. It's fucking flipping all the time. Constantly. Always. So I've discovered my words. I literally just saw me. And the huge gaze is literally the second plateau. It's like glasses, but for my words. It's to sharpen it, to make it. It's like putting on the glasses so I can fucking see, but so I can talk. My voice exists. I created my words using this second plateau tool, the huge gaze, which is one of the meanings of the eye speech symbol, which Twitch splits into a speech bubble and the eye side by side, but when I click it, it's a speech bubble which contains the eye. It's a speech bubble that is an eye. It's like, I'm saying I see you. I'm saying I see. There's only one lesson. You weren't seeing you. The Ramen Nazer comic says you weren't seeing the whole thing. You are the whole thing. It's 2 side by side. But I say there's only one lesson. When you get all the way down to the reality that I'm looking at in Adventure School, you weren't seeing you. So I got the 3 things out of this. Harm reduction, the fucking political platform that I am, which is a checkmate against all bullshit.
Now, let's all just laugh.
And then there's the story of me, how I created all the bullshit. So I got the 3 things out of this.
Now, let's all just laugh. Off. Yeah. Now, how do you feel? Where was you when you were laughing?
The reality that I'm looking at in Adventure School, you weren't seeing you. So I got the 3 things out of this. Harm reduction, the fucking political platform that I am, which is a checkmate against all bullshit. It's free speech. And then there's the story of me, how I created all the blocks, and then the final thing, the Zen Paradox Adventure Koans, which is endless. Adventure meditation is endless. It just feels so good. It's my creative arrival point. It's 100% exactly what I'm doing, and the only thing that I'll be doing. There's no other way it can be. This is the whole picture of what it is. So that's all that needs to be said during this note. All right.
So the world doesn't come thinged. It doesn't come evented. You and I are all as much continuous with the physical universe as a wave is continuous with the ocean. The ocean waves, and the universe peoples. And as the wave, I wave at you and say, you! The world is waving at you, at me with you, and saying, hi, I'm here. But our consciousness, the way we feel and sense our existence, being based on a myth that we are made, that we are parts, that we are things, our consciousness has been influenced so that each one of us does not feel that. We feel we have been hypnotized, literally hypnotized, by social convention into feeling and sensing that we exist only inside our skins. That we are not the original bang, but just something out on the end of it. And therefore we are scared stiff. Because my wave is going to disappear. And I'm going to die. And that would be awful. We've got a mythology going now, which as Father Maskell put it, we're nothing but something that happens between the maternity ward and the crematorium. And that's it. And therefore everybody feels unhappy and miserable. You know, this is what people really believe today. You may go to church, you may say you believe in this, that, and the other, but you don't. Even Jehovah's Witnesses, who are the most fundamentalists, they're polite when they come round and knock at the door. But if you really believed in Christianity, you'd be screaming in the streets. But nobody does. You'd be taking full-page ads in the paper every day. You would have the most terrifying television programs. The churches would be going out of their minds if they really believe what they teach, but they don't. They think they ought to believe what they teach. They believe they should believe, but they don't believe it, because what we really believe is the fully automatic model. And that is our basic, plausible common sense. You are a fluke. You are a separate event. And you run from the maternity ward to the crematorium, and that's it, baby. That's it. Now, why does anybody think that way? There's no reason to, because it isn't even scientific. It's just a myth. And it's invented by people who wanted to feel a certain way. They want to play a certain game. See, the game of God got embarrassing. The idea of God as the potter, the architect of the universe, is good, and it makes you feel that life is, after all, important. There is someone who cares. It has meaning, it has sense, and you are valuable in the eyes of the Father. But after a while, it gets embarrassing. When you realize that everything you do is being watched by God. He knows your tiniest, inmost feelings and thoughts, and you say after a while, quit bugging me. I don't want you around. So you become an atheist, just to get rid of it. Then you feel terrible after that, because you got rid of God, but that means you got rid of yourself. You're just nothing but a machine. And your idea that you're a machine is just a machine too. So we're playing a very funny game. What they wanted to say was this: all you people who believe in religion are old ladies and wishful thinkers. You've got a big daddy up there and you want a comfort and thing, but life is rough. Life is tough. And success goes to the most hard-headed people. That was a very convenient theory when the European American world was colonizing the natives everywhere else. They said, we are the end product of evolution, and we're tough. See, I'm a big, strong guy because I face facts, and life is just a bunch of junk, and I'm going to impose my will on it and turn it into something else, you see. And I'm real hard. See, that's a way of flattering yourself. And so it has become academically plausible and fashionable that this is the way the world works. In academic circles, no other theory of the world than the fully automatic model is respectable. Because if you're an academic person, you've got to be an intellectually tough person. You've got to be prickly. There are basically two kinds of philosophy. One's called prickles, the other's called goo. And prickly people are precise, rigorous, logical. They like everything chopped up and clear. Goo people like it vague. For example, in physics, prickly people believe that the ultimate constituents of matter are particles. Goo people believe it's waves. And in philosophy, prickly people are logical positivists and goo people are idealists. And they're always arguing with each other. Well, what they don't realize is that neither one can take his position without the other person. Because you wouldn't know you advocated prickles unless there was somebody else advocating goo. You wouldn't know what a prickle was unless you knew what goo was. Because life is not either prickles or goo, it's gooey prickles and prickly goo. And they go together, like back and front, male and female. And that's the answer to philosophy. See, I'm a philosopher, and I'm not going to argue very much, because if you don't argue with me, I don't know what I think. So if we argue, I say thank you, because owing to the courtesy of your taking a different point of view, I understand what I mean, so I can't get rid of you. But however, you see, this whole idea that the universe is just nothing at all but unintelligent force playing around, not even enjoying it, is a put-down theory of the world. People who had an advantage to make down, they were so field mechanisms into which you somehow got caught. Siberia trying to help your business things up. I think I do, Joyce. I'm trying influencing most people in the United States today of the scheme of things. We are as symptomatic of the scheme of things as the apples are symptomatic of the apple tree or the rose of the rose bush. The earth is not a big rock infested with living organisms, any more than your skeleton is bones infested with cells. The Earth is geological, yes, but this geological entity grows people. Try this in and live in. And so in order to describe what I'm doing when I'm walking, I have to describe the room. I have to describe the territory. So in describing my talking at the moment, I can't describe this just as a thing in itself because I'm talking to you. And so what I'm doing at the moment is not completely described unless your being here is described also. So if that is necessary, if in other words, in order to describe my behavior, I have to describe your behavior and the behavior of the environment, it means that we've really got one system of behavior. That what I am involves what you are. I don't know who I am unless I know who you are. And you don't know who you are unless you know who I am. There was a wise rabbi once said, if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I and you are not you. In other words, we're not separate. We define each other. We're all backs and fronts to each other. You know, you can't, for example, have two sticks. You lean two sticks against each other and they stand up because they support each other. Take one away and the other falls. Or, you know, Ballantine beer trademark, also a symbol of the Holy Trinity, where there are three interlocked rings. If you pull one out, the other two separate. They interdepend. And so in exactly that way, we and our environment, and all of us and each other, are interdependent systems. Unless I involves what you are. I am. That what I am involves what you are. I don't know who I am unless I know who you are. And you don't know who you are unless you know who I am. There was a wise rabbi once said, if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I and you are not you. In other words, we're not separate. We define each other. We're all backs and fronts to each other. You know, you can't, for example, have two sticks. You lean two sticks against each other and they stand up because they support each other. Take one away and the other falls. Or, you know, Ballantine...
This is the moment where you make decisions that will trap you or set you free. I couldn't be somebody to make the grade, to get a good job, to be somebody. And slowly and gradually, I realized it's about love. It's about you. gotta do in the moment, in the now. This is not time. This is eternal. And yes, I'm very passionate about not being serious. I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about. I want to see the world where the global heart is awakened. That is what team I'm on. And it's not too late because it's all about how you think. Wouldn't you want people to encourage each other instead of judge each other? Stop! You're all looking at me! You're judging me! No! It's an illusion! Huh? I just tricked myself. It's the moment! I just taught you nothing! Because you already know what's important. You're important! Love! Dreams! People! Relationships! Friends! Laughter! Yes! 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 Together, everybody! Together! Together! Yes! We're in it together, whether you like it or not! So love! Here! Now!
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street. There's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore.
Okay, so let's go back to the complexity problem. See, I actually think it's in some sense, it's the fundamental problem. When you read about the terror management theorist types, they think that death is the fundamental problem. And that's a good argument because it's definitely a fundamental problem, but I think it's a subset of the complexity problem. And the reason I think that is because sometimes people's lives become so complex that they'd rather be dead. So, and the reason they seek death through suicide is to make the complexity go away, because complexity causes suffering if it's uncontrolled. You know, things just get beyond your control. And that can happen, you know, if you're hit by 3 or 4 catastrophes at the same time. You know, maybe you have, oh, the political system collapses, there's hyperinflation, you lose your job, and you have someone that you love or 2 people die, and maybe you get cancer, something like that. Like that, those things happen to people, and they just think, well, there's no getting out of this. Like, it's just too much. And you know, one of the things that's very interesting about being a psychologist is that what you learn if you're going to be a psychologist is that people come to you with mental illnesses, and that's almost never true. People come to you because their lives are so damn complicated they cannot stay on top of them in any way that doesn't make it look like they're just going to get more complicated. And so then that causes symptoms. You know, it's like, there's this old idea sort of a metaphor for genetic susceptibility. Take a balloon and blow it up until it's beyond its tolerance, it's going to blow out at the weakest point. Well, that's sort of what a genetic susceptibility is. If I just keep adding complexity on top of you, at some point you'll blow out at your weakest point. You know, maybe you'll get physiologically ill, maybe you'll start drinking, maybe you'll develop an anxiety disorder, maybe you'll get OCD, maybe you'll get depressed, whatever. There'll be something about you that's the weakest point, and if I just push, that's where you'll blow out. So that's a mental illness, but those things almost never just happen. Sometimes, but not very often. Usually people have just been hammered like 2 or 3 different ways, and then they collapse in the direction of their biological weakness, and then maybe you put them back together, but it's almost always a complexity related phenomena rather than a mental illness related phenomena. Not always, but almost always.
Okay, I was just listening to Jordan Peterson, who I don't really listen to him that much or subscribe to many of his ideas, but I have found some intrigue and some resonance in some of the things that he's asserted that I've heard. Now, this particular video I added to the Adventure schooL 5 stack because this episode, or this stack, this session, so to speak, is about being vexed and being trapped and hitting the end of your ability to think you can control anything about anything. The essence of hitting the end of the road, where you literally are in what's called don't care, where you literally can't exert any more belief in something going a certain way that's positive, or in an outcome happening that has any kind of harmony. That's the essence of where you are when the essence of the Sly Man takes over. When you stop trying and you stop not trying, and you're magically boosted into this secret area essence. So Jordan Peterson was saying mental illness is not really the root thing that we're troubled by. And I want to talk about this in the context of my education monk aspect of Adventure schooL, and of what I would like to do. Like Watts says, what you would do if money were no object. This is what I've been trying to think about doing for at least the last 6 years, but much longer in the broad scope of things, since I was in corporate hell, saying I wanted to do something more relevant to teaching and to artfulness and to surviving human struggle by way of creativity and art. In high school, I had exactly one course that was actually centered in this, called Humanities, and it was a combined study between writing / creativity / music with history and literature. Basically was the fourth one. It was those 4 subjects put together: music, literature, history, and writing. There was a writing part of it specifically. So Jordan Peterson said that mental illness is an issue, but the real issue is complexity, complication. And I would rephrase this in terms of our social contract, which is essentially, in essence, at this moment, you're not free. You have to purchase citizenship. You have to purchase freedom by way of obedience and by way of finding a way to sell out your time. Lots and lots of it. It costs a lot of your time in order to succeed at buying your freedom, your citizenship. And we're constantly forced through the I forgot the term Alan Watts uses for it, in Coincidence of Opposites, where he's describing this exact problem in the social contract, and it's more whimsical the way he describes it, by simply presenting the fact that we're going along thinking that we're going to get to the great thing. It's coming, and suddenly you're about 40 years old and you realize you've got there and you don't feel different. And it's the whimsical feeling about realizing you cheated yourself the whole way down the line to think you were going to some great thing, and instead of dancing while the music was playing at any given point along the way, that you weren't taking a journey, that you weren't doing travel across a long distance to go somewhere great, that where you already were was great. Jordan Peterson says that the problem's complication in terms of catastrophes, disasters, pressure, difficulties. This is the flaw in the social contract that forces you to go have your time bought out in order to purchase freedom, in order to purchase just a little bit of relief. It's not enough relief. It's not enough simplicity. It's too much pressure. It's way too much fucking unwellness and discord in terms of the things that aggravate mental illness. So mental illness is not the root problem. It is simply the thing being provoked to greater and greater heights by a system that absolutely will not permit us to have rest. This system expects us to live as if we're not alive, in constant fear, in constant anxiety, and in constant struggle and panic to keep on going on. And go on as if death doesn't even exist. You're not even allowed to acknowledge death. You're supposed to go on pretending like it doesn't happen up until the moment, whoops, you accidentally are gone, and they hide it from you. He goes into this in The Inevitable Ecstasy and a couple other talks, and the Joker, he mentions it offhand, that he's the Undertaker is a guy who sweeps you under the rug at considerable expense. You're not allowed to live as an alive person. You have to go like a zombie, but death and rest isn't allowed either. You're not allowed to give up your responsibility. You're not allowed to have freedom or play or rest. You're not allowed to have a simple life. The system does not tolerate the existence of those who don't belong. That's what's wrong with the social contract, is it requires an endless amount of panic and attainment in pursuit of some great thing, when in actuality it's just obedience to authorities and rulers. And if you're the wrong color or the wrong gender, you make too much noise, you're not allowed to have a bad day. They throw you away for it. They try to come and punish you and make someone out as a criminal if there's a crisis. And I didn't see that angle of the problem, per se, until I was in the domestic hell situations that entailed this. It entailed me getting pushed into this corner where fascists wanted to put me in their for-profit jail system just for trying to save my family. And the only reason I was in that corner is because of the way this endless pressure cooker, aggravates all the mental illness triggers of my significant other, who just simply can't have peace. She's not allowed to be valued for what she does and what she wants to do, and neither am I. What we want to do is education work. We don't want the endless pursuit of obedience to rulers so that you can buy some tiny little 5 minutes a week sovereignty that's basically not even a whole weekend that you get anymore. We don't want that, but the system is aggravating all the types of mental illness that are triggered, that have paranoia and fear and anger and PTSD situations where we can't have peace. And we need to have a society and a social contract where peace is the center point, where you are invited to play the game or any of the games available if you would like to, and where nobody comes out and tries to force you. They don't force you into the street out of housing and out of health if you can't pay your obedience fees, and they don't come force you into a jail if you have bad days every now and then, or you're trying to help somebody who has bad days, and it just aggravates into the point where you're angry and you've made mistakes too because you have flaws, and all of a sudden you're being charged with crimes for it. It's bullshit! And I'm fucking tired of this social contract, and I want to start a monastery that is essentially a school. Education from the standpoint of the monk is a combination of total sovereignty, which is an underlying pillar of total wellness, growth which only happens of itself. It can only take place when there is not force and complication and pressure on top of you, requiring you to go be distracted with attainment and obedience and giving up all of what it takes to have rest and to have nourishment and to have real play, the real contemplation for the sake of what is the basic essence of an enlightened state, of the feeling that you are in the ultimate mind, the ultimate experience, that you're already there, that you are it, that you're not off trying to attain it through some complicated, long, drawn-out process. And that's where Watts brings a heavy amount of roasting toward religion and toward psychotherapy and toward judges and court and authorities and all of it. He embodies the Joker, who always a jester against all forms of stringing you along in complicated attainment to try to keep you there, to try to draw the process out and keep people as their students and as their clients under the psychotherapy guise, or keep you in the jail system as an incarcerated, institutionalized person, or the education system. All of it. He's the only fucking voice other than George Carlin who has ever been able to voice my basic fucking principle of life, that the only action that qualifies as teaching is subverting the authority that pulls you away from well-being and peace and calmness and rest and celebration. It was the ultimate realization that my life purpose, so to speak, is artfulness in support of celebration and against non-celebrators and celebration crashers. The Nazis, the fascists, and the fucking miserable people of this world who can't let others alone, who can't just allow nature to happen of itself, and they have to boss and own the destiny by force. We have to fix this social contract, or the entire human system is completely collapsing. And this pandemic situation is forcing, I think, the elites to make concessions they never ever otherwise would have had to make. They never would have had to admit that it's a game that deliberately throws people away for disobedience, for arbitrary reasons, and not allowing them to have bad days, and not allowing them to have rest, not allowing them to have wellness by way of trying to charge them for the simple right to exist in such a way that just doesn't make sense. It's a self-frustrating game rule. We can't keep living like this as a human group. It will not work. We will all fucking go extinct. Hello?
That existence, the physical universe, is basically playful. There is no necessity for it whatsoever. It isn't going anywhere. That is to say, it doesn't have some destination that it ought to arrive at. But that it is best understood by analogy with music. Because music, as an art form, is essentially playful. We say you play the piano. You don't work the piano. Why? Music differs from, say, travel. When you travel, you are trying to get somewhere. One doesn't make the end of a composition the point of the composition. If that were so, the best conductors would be those who played fastest. And there would be composers who wrote only finales. People go to a concert just to hear one crashing chord, because that's the end. Same way in dancing. You don't aim at a particular spot in the room. That's where you should arrive. The whole point of the dancing is the dance. Now, but we don't see that as something brought by our education into our everyday conduct. We've got a system of schooling which gives a completely different impression. It's all graded. And what we do is we put the child into the corridor of this grade system with a kind of, come on, kitty, kitty, kitty. And yeah, you go to kindergarten, you know, and that's a great thing because when you finish that, you'll get into first grade. And then, come on, first grade leads to second grade, and so on, and then you get out of grade school, and you go to high school, and it's revving up, the thing is coming. Then you're going to go to college, and by Jove, then you get into graduate school, and when you're through with graduate school, you go out to join the world. And then you get into some racket where you're selling insurance, and they've got that quota to make, and you're going to make that. And all the time, the thing is coming. It's coming, that great thing, the success you're working for. Then when you wake up one day about 40 years old, you say, my God, I've arrived. I'm there. And you don't feel very different from what you always felt. By expectation. Look at the people who live to retire and put those savings away. And then when they're 65, they don't have any energy left. They're more or less impotent. And
They go and rot in an old people's, senior citizens community. Because we've simply cheated ourselves the whole way down the line. We thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end, and the thing was to get to that end, success or whatever it is, or maybe heaven after you're dead. But we missed the point the whole way along. It was a musical thing, and you were supposed to sing or to dance while the music was being played.
The Greeks gave us the notion of mountains.
One department where you can have champagne cocktail party to die with, another department where you can have glorious religious rituals and priests and things like that, another department where you can have psychedelic drugs, another department where you can have special kinds of music, anything, you know. All these arrangements will be provided for in a hospital for delightful dying. But that's the thing, to go out with a bang instead of a whimper.
On the hillside, and the boxes made a dicky down. Why do we have to put ourselves in boxes? Why is everything constructed in rectangles? The world is not rectangular, it's a globe. The mountains are not rectangular, and yet you drop a gridiron pattern of streets on a city like San Francisco, which is a lot of hills, and therefore you have accidents with runaway cars and all kinds of problems. Because you see, the concepts that we have in our heads do not fit nature. The Greeks gave us the notion that there are 3 dimensions. There are not 3 dimensions. That is a purely abstract idea. Space is not full of rods going this way, and this way. That's merely an abstract form of measurement. When nature gets together, it tends to become spherical and hexagonal, like bubbles on soap, honeycombs, and things of that kind. But we keep thinking in rectangles, boxes. So we're emboxed. And boxes mean all sorts of classifications. Is you is or is you ain't? Is you black or is you white? Is you capitalist or is you communist? Is you good guys or is you bad guys? Stupid. And so the essential thing to get a sane technology moving is to get rid of the mythology of money.
The real uses of time, that is to say of clocks, because all time is a matter of clocks. There is no time in nature. There is rhythm in nature. Yes, there is motion in nature. But the clock, as a measure of motion, is a human artifact. The world, as it spins on its axis, doesn't tick. And I also pointed out that the calibration of the clock, whereby we have hairlines to designate the point at which a certain second occurs, is symbolic of the emptiness of our moments. When the moment is reduced to a hairline, you feel that it's here and gone, that you can't ever really be now because it's all flying away, and you can never sit down and be there. This was Faust's problem, you see, when he attains his highest moment and is calling, still delay, thou art so fair. See? The moment is a very curious thing. It isn't fleeting at all. It looks as if it is, but it isn't. The moment is always with you. And this is the point. To understand this is the point of all those spiritual exercises which are concerned with concentrating on what you are doing now and keeping your mind on it. For example, in the practice of the Japanese tea ceremony, the entire art of it is to have complete presence of mind, to be completely with doing just this thing. So likewise, in all sorts of yoga exercises, try and be completely now. The whole training of a Zen monk, day in and day out throughout his discipline, whether it's meditation or whether it's work or sweeping or cooking or eating or whatever it is, they keep insisting, do what you're doing. Eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired, and do that. But the point of that exercise is that after you practice it for a while, it suddenly occurs to you with a great shock, which is a sort of satori, that there is nowhere else to be but the moment. You cannot be anywhere else. It doesn't flow away, it's always here. Maybe a lot of things flow through it. Forms change, experiences change, rhythms change, and so on, but it's always there. So you have plenty of time in the sense of real time, which is the moment. To have time is to have the moment. You remember the story that Florey told at the end of last session, where the Dalai Lama's brother says that, yes, it was very nice to come to the United States, but the problem of the difference between here and Tibet was that here you have all sorts of power and whatnot, but you have no time. In Tibet you have a very primitive existence and lots of time. And it's so interesting to get into a culture that is so-called primitive. It's very easy, because you can now take a jet plane to Puerto Vallarta in a matter of a very short time. You can be in touch with a culture that is ageless, because you only have to go from Puerto Vallarta down north or south to the Indian villages along the coast, which you can only reach by boat or by a jeep through jungle roads, which are just terrible. And you get out to these people, and suddenly, everything stops. You know, where are they going? They're doing the things they've always done. And it's sort of we always say it's a sleepy village. Not very exciting. So, actually, Zen is the art of combining an exciting life with living in the complete present. Very curious. It's not sleepy at all. It's not like you would think of a sleepy village. When you watch Zen monks walking, they don't dawdle, they're like cats. You know how a cat crosses a road? It has a complete kind of, it knows where it's going, it just goes like that. And that's like a Zen monk walking. It's a most curious combination of what you would call the virtues of economy, of expertness in doing what you do, and at the same time not being in any hurry. This Zen master in San Francisco, Suzuki Roshi, is particularly admired by his students for achieving an enormous amount of work without ever seeming to make the slightest effort. And he can move. They've just been working down at Tassajara Springs, and they have rearranged a rocky stream to make it look more natural. And he can move bigger rocks than any of the tough young men who are working along with him. Simply fantastic. But it's all based on a real relationship to the material, especially to the material moment, and working in such a way that you never strain yourself because you never rush. You don't have in mind the goal and wanting to get there in the greatest possible hurry. You have in mind simply that every phase of doing the work which will eventually arrive at that goal is as much worth doing as when you're playing music. You are involved completely in the production of the sounds as they go along without hurrying them to reach the end. That's the same with sex. A lot of people are in a hurry to reach the end, and therefore they never have sexual satisfaction because they have nothing but orgasms. And although people have talked a great deal about the importance of the orgasm, and that's true and right and perfectly proper, it's worth nothing without the build-up. It would be the same thing as taking dietetic pills, where you have a few pills which contain all the essential nutrition. Throw them down, get on with real life. Or by having some substitute for sleep that you could take in a pill and not have to sleep. Incidentally, I just want to put in a parenthesis here about the importance of sleep. There is a very special kind of sleep, which the Hindus call sushupti, sleep without dreams and very deep. And isn't sleep funny, that you go to bed and time is totally eliminated until you wake up. And you seem to wake up immediately after you went to sleep, and yet something happened. Now, there is a way of getting into completely profound sleep, which I call, I don't know where I got the word, I call it a temple sleep. And I found it best in a protected area out of doors on a sunny afternoon or at night, where you get under a tree and you get a suitable pad and you lie on your back and you simply open up like a cat does or a dog does sometimes. You stretch in every direction like this and you surrender to the earth and you sink, you let go. You imagine your body is extremely heavy so that it's dropping into the earth, and you just let yourself go to the night with the kind of feeling that you are being moved through by immensely powerful life energy, healing energy or whatever, and you give to this letting go of everything, letting go of all control, of all consciousness, of all anxiety, of all care about anything. And you go right down into this immense depth. And then you wake up a little before dawn, and the sky is a deep, deep blue, and you can see the stars through the leaves, And that feeling that you get when morning comes, and everything is awakening, and there's a kind of extraordinary freshness to the world, then you really thoroughly get with the dawn. It's a magnificent experience. But you see, the trouble is that sleep strikes our whole culture as a waste of time. Why have to take this out, you see? Why have to cut it out? But what I'm indicating by giving you this little imagery is how it's possible to enjoy unconsciousness, and what restorative value unconsciousness can have. In just the same way, a death. You know Stevenson's poem, "Under the wide and starry sky, dig me a grave and let me lie. Glad did I live and gladly die, and I laid me down with a will." If you can see death in that way, just as when you went to sleep, you abandoned all the cares and so on, so in death you abandon all responsibilities.
Dostoevsky said that in Notes from the Underground, a great, great book. And he said, I love this. It was an early criticism of the notion of a political utopia. He said, look, if you gave people everything they wanted, they had nothing to eat but cake, and nothing to do but sit in warm pools and busy themselves with the continuation of the species. That was his lines. That the first thing they would do, well, maybe after the first week, was like go kind of half insane and smash everything up just so that something that they didn't expect would happen, so that they'd have something interesting to do. And it's so right, because the utopian notion that if you just had all the material stuff you wanted, that you'd be, well, what would you be? What would you do? Would you just sit on the couch and watch TV? I mean, you'd be, I don't know what, you'd be cutting yourself just for entertainment in no time flat, and that's the sort of thing that people do. And so we're not adapted for security and utopia. We're adapted for a certain amount of security because, we are vulnerable, but mostly we want to have one foot out where we don't know what the hell is going on, because that's where you're alert and alive and tense and with it. And I believe this, and I believe it actually has something to do with the hemispheric structure of the physiology of your brain, is because the right hemisphere looks roughly adapted to what you don't know, and the left hemisphere, and this is an oversimplification, but a useful one, is adapted to the world that you do know, and the right place for you to be is halfway between them. Because and you can tell that. That's what's so cool. And this tells you that this is actually reality that's manifesting itself to you. That sense of active engagement you have in the world when things are working well for you, where you should be at the right time. You're alert and on top of things and engaged, and you don't have much of a sense of time, and the sense of the tragedy of life sort of recedes. And that's when you've got one foot where it's secure and one foot out in the unknown, and your brain signals to you that you're in the right place by making what you're doing meaningful. And that sense of meaning is actually a neurophysiological signal that you've got the forces of the cosmos properly balanced in your being at that moment. And that's why it feels so good. And then, well, what else could it possibly be? I mean, our brain is capable of looking beyond our vision. That's what it's for. And that sense of engagement, there's no reason to assume that that's anything but a real signal. And you can reduce it. You could say, well, the problem with being where you know only is that you don't know everything. And that's going to be a problem in the future. And the problem with being where you know nothing is, that's just too much, man. Like, you go into panic mode, and because anything can happen there and you can't handle it. So you got to mediate between those two things. You want to be secure enough so that your physiology isn't revving out of control, and you want to be out there in the unknown enough so that you keep updating yourself constantly. And that's the place where information flow is maximized. And you know that because that's where you are when you're having a really interesting conversation with someone, or you're gripped by a book, or you're really into a movie, or maybe something that you do as apart from your work, or maybe even in your work, you're into it. And that's because you are in the right place at the right time, and your whole nervous system is signaling that to you. And I would say that's the sort of place that you should be all the time. Of course, you can't be, because no one's perfect, but that's the recreation of paradise on earth. It's something like it, because you are in the right place at the right time when that is happening. And so we're mobile creatures, right? We need to know where we're going, because all we're ever concerned about, roughly speaking, is where we're going. That's what we need to know. Where are we going? What are we doing? And why? It turns out that the way that we're constructed neurophysiologically is that we don't experience any positive emotion unless we have an aim and we can see ourselves progressing towards that aim. It isn't precisely attaining the aim that makes us happy. As you all know, if you've ever attained anything, because as soon as you attain it, then the whole little game ends. Then you have to come up with another game, right? So it's Sisyphus, and that's okay, but it does show that the attainment can't be the thing that drives you, because it collapses the game. That's what happens when you graduate from university. It's like you're king of the mountain for one day, and then you're like surf at Starbucks for the next 5 years, So, yeah. So what happens is that human beings are weird creatures, because we're much more activated by having an aim and moving towards it than we are by attainment. And what that means is you have to have an aim, and that means you have to have an interpretation. And it also means that the nobler the aim, that's one way of thinking about it, the better your life. And that's a really interesting thing to know, because, you know, you've heard ever since you were tiny that you should act like a good person, and you shouldn't lie, for example. And you might think, well, why the hell should I act like a good person, and why not lie? I mean, even a 3-year-old can ask that question, because smart kids learn to lie earlier, by the way. And they think, well, why not twist the fabric of reality so that it serves your specific short-term needs? I mean, that's a great question. Why not do that? Why act morally? If you can get away with something and it brings you closer to something you want, well, why not do it? These are good questions. It's not self-evident. Well, it seems to me tied in with what I just mentioned. It's like you destabilize yourself and things become chaotic. That's not good. And if you don't have a noble aim, then you have nothing but shallow, trivial pleasures, and they don't sustain you. And that's not good, because life is so difficult, it's so much suffering, it's so complex. It ends and everyone dies and it's painful. It's like without a noble aim, how can you withstand any of that? You can't. You become desperate, and once you become desperate, things go from bad to worse very rapidly when you become desperate. And so there's the idea of the noble aim, and it's not something. It's something that's necessary. It's the bread that people cannot live without, right? That's not physical bread. It's the noble aim. And what is that? Well, it's to pay attention. It's to speak properly. It's to confront chaos. It's to make a better world. It's something like that. And that's enough of a noble aim so that you can stand up without, cringing at the very thought of your own existence, so that you can do something that's worthwhile to justify your wretched position on the planet. And whatever it is that is you has this capacity to experience reality and to transform it, which is a very strange thing. You can conceptualize a future in your imagination, and then you can work and make that manifest. You participate in the process of creation. It's an amazing idea, because it gives consciousness a constitutive role in the cosmos.
We've been programmed with a belief that if you have a good life and you die, you get a chance to go to heaven, which is what? Heaven is anybody's individual thing. I talk to you, you give me your definition of heaven, you listen to my definition, you listen to somebody else. They're all different. We all have creative vision. So heaven is a creative place. And I go, so what's relevant? I go, once I started to understand this stuff, first of all, I never believed in spirituality, but the science revealed using quantum physics and epigenetics that we are a field, an energy field playing through this body. What I learned through this is, first of all, there's no such thing as death of who we are. There's death of the body, but the body is like a virtual reality soup, that an energy field that is different for each one of us is operating in this body. My self-receptors on my cells, which distinguish me as being different from you, respond to a different environmental signal than your self-receptor. So each of us is receiving like a broadcast that is running this biology. Consciousness is running the biology. Consciousness isn't physical, it's an energy. And I go, why is it relevant? Because the answer was this. The belief that if you do really well and you persevere, and when you die, you're gonna go to this place called heaven. And I go, consider this, that we were born into heaven, that we came here to create. That's what we're doing. We're creating. And I say, when we're creating it right, heaven on earth is here. When we're creating it wrong, struggle is here. And all of a sudden I say, oh my God, don't wait till you die that you're going to go to heaven. This is it. This is where you came to create. What do you want to create? Love? Coronavirus? You can create a damn thing you want. This is creation place. But if you don't know that your creations are being controlled, then we become a victim of a world out of control. And yet we were the creators. We gave in to other people's beliefs. And then we now are creating, not with our wishes and desires, we're creating with the program. Where's the program taking us right now? And the answer is fear, shutdown, loss of community, breakdown of the system. I go, we can learn or not. That's it. And this is a learning moment. Take your power back. You are beyond, power-wise, beyond any virus that ever existed. You are very powerful. Every human, and this is a fact, every human first 7 years is download a hypnosis. The brain of a child under 7 is in a lower vibrational frequency. When you put wires on a person's head, you read electroencephalograph, reading brain activity. A child below 7 has a lower vibration than consciousness. It's called theta. Theta is imagination. Oh, that's how kids play a tea party with mud pies, but to them it's a real thing. A kid rides a broom, it's a horse. That's theta, imagination. Theta is also hypnosis. And the idea is this: before you can become conscious, if you don't have any programs, what are you going to be conscious of? So nature makes the first 7 years. What kind of programs are required to live on this planet? I say, how do you get them? Theta is hypnosis. You just watch. You watch your parents, you watch your siblings, and your community, because you have to learn how many 100,000 rules. Think about it. Just to be a functional member of a family and a functional member of a community, there are rules. Teach an infant these rules. I say, oh, you don't have to. First 7 years, they observe it and just download it. Look, this is not new. I mean, there's the famous book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And basically said, you come from a poor family and you could struggle your whole life and try to get rich, but you're not going to make it. And if you come from a rich family, you could be stupid your whole life and make it. Not because it was thinking, but it was unconscious behavior that was downloaded from rich families into kids, which is unconscious. So they're making the right moves unconsciously. If they engage their conscious mind, then they look stupid, but it's unconscious. And that's the same thing with poor people. Poor people have beliefs from the family. Oh, you can't make it, life's a struggle, things are hard, who do you think you are? And if that's the program you get, then 95% of the day you will sabotage yourself. And that's why poor people stay poor and rich people stay rich, because the programming. 95% of our life, this is a fact, comes from those programs in the subconscious. Every day, only about 5% of their life are you using conscious, which is creative. 5%.
So your life is being lived, even though you think you're living your life.
Exactly, and you don't see it because it's called subconscious, below conscious. And the Jesuits, for 400 years, they were boasting. People didn't understand. They say, give me a child until it's 7 and I will show you the man. They've been saying that for 400 years because they knew 7 years was the program period. And 95% of your life after that will be whatever that program is. Your life is a printout of your subconscious behavior. Oh, so you don't have to try and think about what happened. I just say, look at your life. The things you like that come into your life come in because you have a program that supports them. But anything you struggle with, work hard at, put a lot of effort into making it happen, why you're working so hard, inevitably you have a program that doesn't support that conclusion and you're trying to override the program. So you don't need to do a lot of shrink and psychology stuff. You just look at your life and say, where am I struggling? Because wherever you're struggling, inevitably it's a program in your subconscious that does not support that destination you've been looking for. The conscious mind is creative and can learn in any number of ways. Read a self-help book, go to a lecture, listen to this program, and conscious mind's going to get some awareness. And I go, yeah, but subconscious mind doesn't learn that way. I go, right, it doesn't. Subconscious mind learns in 2 fundamental ways naturally. Hypnosis, which is the first 7 years. And after age 7, how do you put new programs in? Repetition. Practice. You want to drive a car, you didn't learn how by just getting in the seat and put the key in. You had to practice driving the car. You want to learn the alphabet. How many times did you go from A to Z? Try to go to A to Z before you can complete it. And once you completed it, you didn't have to go back and do it again. So 2 phases. You want to train the subconscious mind. Hypnosis, repetition. I like the last one because there's a new phrase that's bandied about called fake it till you make it. Meaning, if you're not a happy person, I say, you want to be a happy person? Then repeat all the time, I'm happy, I'm happy. I say, well, you don't look happy or anything. You say, no, who am I talking to?
By repetition, I'm talking to subconscious.
Okay.
If subconscious gets, I am happy, and 95% of your life comes from that subconscious, there will be a point once the subconscious got, I am happy, you don't have to say it again.
Okay.
It'll be automatic.
And that's why we see people do affirmations and gratitude journals and stuff, because if you do that daily,
It's repetitive, and that's the secret part. Putting a sticky note on the refrigerator is more like a suggestion, but it's not a repetition. So it doesn't work very well. But you have to do, repetition is a habit. It's making habit. So you got to do something religiously in a sense of repeating it to make it work. If you don't like the program, you don't like the way it's turning out, well then you can reprogram it. And you could get the things you want. The movie The Matrix is not science fiction. It's a documentary. This is the whole story of The Matrix. Matrix, you've been programmed? Oh, we're gonna take a red pill and get out of the program, okay? Falling in love is the equivalent of taking the red pill biologically. Scientists have studied what is called mind wandering. I said, what is mind wandering? I said, well, your conscious mind could be focused on a task, or your conscious mind could go off into think about things, okay? And the relevance about that is when the conscious mind is staying in the front, you're in absolute control. Wishes, desires, what you want, conscious mind, creative, you're in control. But the moment your conscious mind takes off into a thought or starts thinking or whatever going on, it lets go of the wheel, the autopilot takes over, okay? So the idea is this: if your mind is wandering, then you're being run by the subconscious. And it turns out this is very negative. When your mind is straightforward in consciousness, you're controlling the vehicle. So I say, falling in love has been demonstrated biologically to be equivalent to the red pill, because what it does is it keeps you, what do they call, mindful, keeps you conscious. Look, you've been looking for this partner your whole life. They're now in front of your face. This is not the time to go thinking about things. It's time to be, oh, look what I got right here in front of me. And I say, well, think about it this way. Your life could suck every day, and then you meet this person, and 24 hours later, it's heaven on earth. 24 hours later, oh my God, I'm so in love, Even the job's not so bad anymore, and the food tastes great, and the music is so much better, and love, and love, and love. I go, what the heck happened? You had all of this negative, and then in 24 hours, you have this heaven on earth. And the answer was, it was taking the red pill. That's what falling in love is. At that moment, you stop playing the program. Now you're operating from conscious mind, which is creative, which by definition is wishes and desires. What the heck do you want from your life? If you answer that question, it's a creative answer, and by definition, it's conscious. So your wishes and desires are in your conscious mind. In a normal person's life, 5% of the day, you're moving toward that. 95% you're playing the program. You fall in love, 100, it was actually 90%, I think is the number, 90% from conscious mind. 90% of the day you are now operating from creative wishes and desires. I go, look, I said your life sucked all the way up, and then 24 hours of operating on wishes and desires and not playing the program turned earth into heaven for you at that moment. And then you go, well, how come the honeymoon doesn't last? I go, because inevitably you still have to think about things, your job, your chores, your requirements, what you have to do. And at some point, once you start thinking, then the conscious mind is shut off. And guess what shows up? All those behaviors in the subconscious mind that were negative, 70%. And your partner, remember, your partner and you fall in love same time, both of you operating from conscious mind with wishes and desires. And all of a sudden, you start thinking, and then this behavior shows up that was your mother, your father, or whatever thing you learned, and your partner is like, where the hell did that come from? Who are you? Is a response. It's like, where did that come from? We've been in this honeymoon. I've never seen that behavior. If you would have played that behavior on the first date, maybe we wouldn't have a second date, but now it shows up. And I say, why did it show up? Because I stopped being mindful.
Okay. So how do you teach people to keep the honeymoon alive?
Is to change the subconscious program. and it's simple for reasoning is simple. Conscious mind, wishes and desires. Subconscious mind, program. Well, what if you took the wishes and desires and made those programs? Then guess what? You don't even have to think about it. You will automatically, 95% of the day, be playing behaviors to manifest those wishes and desires. Okay. So reprogramming the subconscious with wishes and desires means you don't even have to think about it. So when you fall in love, the cocktail of chemicals coming out of your brain are things that enhance your vitality, your life, make you healthier, happier, and joy. I go, the same person, if they open their eyes and see something that scares them, none of those love chemicals are going to come out of the brain. At that moment, stress hormones and inflammatory agents are going to be released by the brain. All of a sudden I say, well, then you change the chemical composition of the culture medium. I go, yeah. Result? The composition of the culture medium controlled the fate of the cells. The composition of your blood controls the fate of your cells. The composition of your blood based on the picture in your mind. Change the picture, you change the chemistry.
Almost everybody has the same wishes and desires. To be in love, to be happy, to be healthy, to be peaceful. That's a standard wish and desire of everybody. And if we all lived with those wishes and desires, this planet would change overnight. We would have harmony. We would have peace. We would have nature, community, environment. But until we change those subconscious programs, then we become victims of the program and not creators of our life. And when this is understood, then people could say, wait, I have a choice. I say, you do. You can play the programs you're playing, or you can rewrite those programs and take power back. And that's our destination.